The ship moved slowly through the purple clouds of the star system. It was a human vessel called the Starward Horizon, and it carried something very important. Princess of the Empire was on board, returning home after spending 3 years on Earth learning about human culture. Corporal Daniel Hayes stood outside the door to the princess's room. He had been standing there for 6 hours and his legs were tired, but he did not move. He did not sit down. He did not complain. This was his job and he took it very seriously. Daniel was 32 years old. He had brown hair that was cut short in the military style, and his eyes were the color of the sky on a cloudy day. He was not the tallest man or the strongest man, but there was something about him that made people trust him. Maybe it was the way he looked at you when you spoke, like he was really listening. Maybe it was the way he kept his promises, no matter how small they were. He had been assigned to protect Princess 18 months ago. At first, it had seemed like a simple job. The princess was friendly and curious about humans, and she spent most of her time in safe places with many guards around her. Daniel had expected to spend his days standing at doors and walking through hallways, never really getting to know the person he was protecting. But things had changed. Was not like the other aliens Daniel had met during his time in the Space Corps. She was warm and kind and funny. She asked questions about everything, from human food to human music to human emotions. She wanted to understand why humans laughed when they were nervous, and why they cried when they were happy, and why they sometimes did both at the same time. Daniel had found himself answering her questions during the long hours when nothing was happening. At first, he kept his answers short and professional, but had a way of making him talk, of asking the follow-up question that made him think more deeply about things he had never really considered before. Over the months, their conversations had grown longer and more personal. Daniel told her about growing up in Colorado, about the mountains that touched the clouds and the rivers that ran cold and clear. He told her about his mother, who had died when he was 17, and how he still missed her every single day. He told her about joining the Space Corps because he wanted to see the stars, and how the reality of military life was different from his dreams but still worth it. And had shared things with him too. She told him about the pressure of being a princess, about the expectations that weighed on her like heavy stones. She told him about her father who had died before she was born, killed by an assassin who was never caught. She told him about her mother, the queen, who was cold and distant and seemed to care more about the empire than about her own daughter. Somewhere in all those conversations, something had changed inside Daniel. He had started looking forward to his shifts guarding, not because it was his duty, but because he wanted to see her. He had started noticing things about her that had nothing to do with security. The way she tilted her head when she was curious. The way she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The way her silver skin seemed to glow when she was happy. He had fallen in love with her. It was stupid, and he knew it was stupid. She was a princess of an alien empire, and he was a corporal from Colorado. She would return to her and marry some noble from a powerful family, and he would go back to Earth and continue his military career. There was no future for them, no possibility of anything more than these stolen conversations during quiet moments. But knowing something was impossible did not stop him from feeling it. Daniel had learned that lesson many times in his life. The door to his room opened and she stepped out. She was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe to someone who had never seen her. Her skin was silver, but not the dull silver of metal. It was more like moonlight given solid form, luminous and alive. She had 4 eyes instead of 2, all of them a deep violet color that seemed to hold entire galaxies inside them. Her body was similar to a human woman's, but taller and thinner, with fingers that had an extra joint. She was wearing robes made of some fabric that Daniel did not recognize. They flowed around her like water, catching the light of the hallway in ways that made them shimmer and dance. A small crown sat on her head, made of crystals that glowed with their own inner light. She looked at Daniel and her expression softened. "You are still here," she said. You have been standing outside my door for 6 hours." "Yes, Your Highness," Daniel replied. "You should rest. We are still 3 days from my—" "I will rest when you are safely delivered to your mother," made a sound that Daniel had learned to recognize as frustration. It was a soft clicking noise that came from somewhere in her throat. "You humans and your stubborn sense of duty. Do you never think about yourself?" "I think about myself plenty, Your Highness. I also think about keeping you safe. Right now, keeping you safe is more important." She studied him with all 4 of her eyes. Daniel had learned that could focus each of their eyes independently, looking at multiple things at once. But when looked at him, all 4 of her eyes were fixed on his face, and it made him feel like she could see right through him. "My mother will find you very strange," she said finally. "Why is that?" "Because you are loyal without expecting reward. You are kind without expecting kindness in return. You do your duty not because someone is watching, but because you believe it is the right thing to do." She paused. "The do not understand such behavior. We are taught from birth that everything has a price, and that loyalty is simply a transaction between parties who each have something to gain." Daniel considered this. "Maybe that is true for some people on Earth too," he said, "but I was raised differently. My mother used to say that a promise is a promise, whether anyone is watching or not. She said that the measure of a person is what they do when no one can see them." "Your mother sounds wise." "She was the person I ever knew." Was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and touched his arm, her silver fingers cool against his skin. "I am glad you are here, Daniel. I am glad you are the one protecting me." Daniel felt his heart beat faster. He knew he should say something professional, something appropriate for a guard speaking to a princess. But instead he said, "I am glad too." They stood there for a moment, looking at each other. Something passed between them, something unspoken but very real. Daniel wondered if she felt it too, this connection that had grown between them over 18 months of conversations and shared silences. Then the ship shook violently, and the moment was gone. Alarms began screaming throughout the corridor. Red lights flashed on the walls. Daniel's training took over instantly, his body moving before his mind had time to catch up. He grabbed and pushed her back into her room, putting himself between her and the door. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. "I do not know. Stay here. Do not open this door for anyone except me." He sealed the door and turned to face the corridor. Other guards were running past, heading toward the front of the ship. Daniel could hear distant sounds of weapons fire and shouting. Something had gone very wrong. A young lieutenant came running down the corridor. His face was pale and his eyes were wide with terror. "Raiders," he gasped. "Raiders, they came out of nowhere. They are boarding the ship." Daniel felt his stomach drop. They were among the most feared species in the galaxy. They were massive creatures, standing nearly 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that made them almost impossible to kill with conventional weapons. They raided ships and colonies throughout the outer systems, taking slaves and resources and leaving nothing but death behind them. And they were on this ship that carried a princess. "How many?" Daniel asked. "We do not know, at least 3 boarding pods, maybe more." The lieutenant was shaking. "Captain ordered all non-essential personnel to the escape pods." "The princess cannot go to an escape pod. She is the primary target. They will be looking for her." "I know." The lieutenant looked like he was going to be sick. "Captain said to hold them off as long as possible. Reinforcements are 3 hours away." 3 hours. Daniel did not think they had 3 hours. He did not think they had 3 minutes. "Go," he told the lieutenant. "Help organize the defense. I will protect the princess." The lieutenant nodded and ran off. Daniel turned back to face the sealed door behind which waited. He checked his weapon, a standard military pulse rifle that would be about as effective against armor as throwing rocks. Then he took position beside the door, ready for whatever was coming. The sounds of battle grew closer. Daniel could hear the distinctive roar of war cries mixed with the screams of dying humans. He heard pulse rifles firing, and he heard the heavy thud of weapons returning fire. He heard explosions and the groaning of metal as sections of the ship were torn apart. And then, very close, he heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that made the deck plates vibrate with each step. Two warriors came around the corner of the corridor. They were even more terrifying than Daniel had imagined. Their bodies were covered in plates of natural chitin that looked like black stone, and their faces were a nightmare of sharp angles and glowing red eyes. They carried weapons that looked like they had been designed specifically to cause pain. They saw Daniel and they laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping against metal. "One human," the first said in broken galactic standard. "Guarding a door, how touching." "The princess is inside," the second one said. "I can smell her." Daniel raised his rifle. "You are not getting through this door." The first laughed again. "You cannot hurt us, little human. Your weapons are toys." It took a step forward. "But we can hurt you very much." Daniel fired. The pulse bolt struck the directly in the chest, and the creature did not even flinch. The bolt dissipated against its natural armor like water against stone. "Toys," the repeated. It was on him before he could fire again. One massive clawed hand grabbed his rifle and crushed it like paper. Another hand wrapped around his throat and lifted him off the ground. "You should run away, little human," the said, its red eyes inches from Daniel's face. "You should hide in a corner and hope we do not find you. This is not your fight." Daniel struggled against the grip on his throat. He could not breathe, could not speak, but he managed to do one thing. He managed to draw the combat knife from his belt and drive it into the small gap between the plates on this arm. The creature roared in pain and dropped him. Daniel hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. He rolled to his feet and positioned himself in front of the door again. "You are making a mistake," the said, pulling the knife from its arm and looking at the bright blue blood that dripped from the wound. "You cannot win this fight. You will die and we will take the princess anyway. What is the point?" "The point," Daniel said, his voice rough from being choked, "is that you have to go through me to get to her, and I am not going to make it easy for you." The studied him with something that might have been curiosity. "Why do you care so much about this alien female? She is not of your species. She is not of your world. Why would you die for her?" Daniel did not answer. He did not know how to explain it in a way that I would understand. He did not even know if he could explain it to himself. All he knew was that was behind that door, and as long as he was alive, no one was going to hurt her. The shrugged its massive shoulders. "It does not matter. You will tell us nothing and you will die anyway." It turned to its companion. "Kill him. I will get the door." The second stepped forward, raising its weapon. Daniel prepared to dodge, knowing it would not matter, knowing that his death was seconds away. And then the first fell, a smoking hole in the back of its head. More humans came around the corner, a squad of Marines in full combat armor. They opened fire on the remaining, and the creature finally went down under the concentrated assault. The squad leader approached Daniel. He was a sergeant named Murphy, a big man with a face and hard eyes. "Corporal Hayes," he said, "you are supposed to be dead." "Sorry to disappoint you, Sergeant." Murphy almost smiled. "The princess." "Safe for now." "Good. We are pulling back to this section of the ship. The front half is lost. We are going to seal the blast doors and try to hold until reinforcements arrive." Daniel nodded. "What about how many are there?" "At least 30, maybe more. They want the princess and they are not going to stop until they get her or die trying." Murphy's expression was grim. "We have maybe 20 Marines left. This is going to be ugly." Over the next 2 hours, ugly was exactly what it was. They came in waves, throwing themselves against the human defenses with a ferocity that was almost mindless. The Marines fought back with everything they had, using choke points and crossfire to compensate for their inferior numbers. But for every that fell, it seemed like two more took its place. Daniel stayed at his position outside's door. He knew that the main battle was elsewhere, that his presence there was probably unnecessary, but he could not bring himself to leave. If the broke through the main defenses, he would be the last line between them and the princess, and he intended to make that line count. Murphy came to check on him periodically, bringing reports of the battle and occasionally asking for help with tactical decisions. Daniel had a reputation for being smart under pressure, and Murphy was the kind of leader who used every resource available to him. "We cannot hold much longer," Murphy said during one of these visits. His armor was and smoking from near misses, and his face was covered in blood that might have been his own or might have belonged to someone else. "Reinforcements are still an hour away. We have maybe 15 Marines left, and we are running low on ammunition." "What about the escape pods?" Daniel asked. "Can we get the princess to one of them?" Murphy shook his head. "They have the escape pod bay locked down. That was the first thing they took. They knew we would try to evacuate the VIPs." He paused. "They really want her, Hayes. This is not a random raid. This is an assassination attempt." Daniel felt cold fear settle in his stomach. Who would want the princess dead? "I do not know. Maybe someone in the government, maybe a rival empire. Maybe they just got hired by someone with deep pockets." Murphy shrugged. "It does not matter right now. What matters is keeping her alive until help arrives." He returned to the front lines, and Daniel was alone again with his thoughts and his fear. The door behind him opened and stepped out. Daniel immediately tried to push her back inside, but she resisted. "I can hear the fighting," she said. "I know what is happening. I know they are coming for me." "Then you know you need to stay hidden." "I know that you are standing here alone while your comrades die trying to protect me." Her 4 eyes were filled with something that looked like determination. "I will not let you sacrifice yourself for me, Daniel. I will not let any of you die for me." "That is not your choice to make." "Then whose choice is it?" Daniel did not have an answer for that. He just knew that he could not let her give herself up to whatever they wanted with her. It would not be good. "Please," he said, and he heard his own voice crack. "Please go back inside. Let me do my job." Reached out and touched his face. Her silver fingers traced along his jaw, and Daniel felt something break inside him. All the feelings he had been holding back, all the love he had never allowed himself to express, it all came rushing to the surface. "You love me," she said softly. It was not a question. Daniel did not deny it. "Yes." "How long?" "I do not know. Months. Maybe from the beginning. I tried not to. I tried to be professional, but you are." He struggled to find the words. "You are everything. You are kind and curious and beautiful and good. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe that the universe is not just cold and dark and empty." She was crying. Silver tears ran down her silver face, and she looked at him with all 4 of her beautiful violet eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. And then she kissed him. It was not like kissing a human. Her lips were cool instead of warm, and her mouth tasted like something Daniel could not identify, something sweet and alien. But it was also the most perfect kiss he had ever experienced. It was everything he had wanted for 18 months, everything he had been afraid to hope for. When they finally parted, Daniel felt like the universe had shifted somehow, like everything had changed. "When this is over," said, "we will find a way. I do not know how, but we will find a way to be together." Daniel wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that there was a future where they could be happy together, where nothing else mattered except the love they shared. But he knew better. "Go back inside," he said gently. "Please, let me keep you safe." This time she listened. She touched his face one more time, and then she retreated into her room. The door sealed behind her, and Daniel was alone again. alone with his love and his fear, and the knowledge that he would probably die in the next few minutes. The battle reached his position 20 minutes later. The main defenses had collapsed. Murphy was dead, along with most of his Marines. The survivors had fallen back to make a final stand in the corridor outside the princess's room, but there were only 5 of them left, and they were out of ammunition. Daniel stood with them, a dead weapon in his hands because his own had been destroyed hours ago. The alien weapon was heavy and awkward, designed for hands much larger than his own, but he had figured out how to fire it. The remaining advanced down the corridor. There were at least 15 of them, and their commander was at the front. He was bigger than the others, his natural armor darker and thicker, and he moved with the confidence of someone who knew he had already won. "Surrender the princess," the commander said. "Surrender her, and I will let the rest of you live." No one answered, no one moved. The commander made a sound that might have been a sigh. "You humans are so stubborn, you cannot win. You must know that you cannot win, and yet you continue to fight." He shook his head. "It would be admirable if it were not so foolish." "We are not going to give you the princess," Daniel said. The commander's red eyes focused on him. "You are the one who has been guarding her door. My warriors told me about you. They said you refused to leave your post even when you knew you could not win." "They were right." "Why, what is she to you? A job, a responsibility?" The commander stepped closer and the other fanned out behind him. "Or is it something more?" Daniel did not answer. "Ah," the commander said, "I see. The human has feelings for the alien princess. How romantic." He laughed, that horrible scraping sound. "It does not matter. Love will not save her. Love will not save you." "Maybe not," Daniel said, "but I am still not moving." The commander's amusement faded. "Then you will die where you stand." He gestured to his warriors, and they attacked. What followed was the most brutal fight of Daniel's life. The 5 humans stood back to back, fighting with everything they had, using every trick they knew. 2 of them died in the first minute, torn apart by claws. Another fell seconds later, his head crushed by a massive fist. And then it was just Daniel and one other Marine, a young woman named Tors who had been fighting like a demon all night. "Go," she said to Daniel, "get to the princess. I will hold them." "I am not leaving you." "I am not asking." She looked at him and her eyes were fierce. "You love her, protect her. That is an order." Before Daniel could argue, she charged at the nearest group of, firing her weapon and screaming a battle cry. They swarmed her, and she disappeared under a pile of massive bodies. Daniel used the distraction to fall back to the door. He positioned himself in front of it, his stolen weapon raised, knowing that he was the last defense. The commander approached, leaving his warriors to deal with Tors. He was not even breathing hard. The entire battle had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience to him. "You are alone," he said to Daniel. "Your comrades are dead, your weapon is almost empty, and there is nothing standing between me and that door except you. Then I guess you will have to go through me." The commander tilted his head. "You are not afraid." "I am terrified," Daniel admitted. "But that does not matter. I made a promise. I told her I would keep her safe, and that is what I am going to do. Even if it kills you. Even if it kills me." The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I have fought many species across many worlds. I have killed warriors and kings and beings that thought themselves gods, but I have never met anyone like you." He stepped forward. "I am going to give you one more chance, human. Step aside. Let me take the princess, and I will let you live." Daniel's answer was to fire his weapon at the commander's face. The blast did not penetrate the chitin armor, but it made the commander flinch. And that was enough. Daniel threw himself forward, driving his shoulder into the commander's midsection, trying to knock him off balance. It was like hitting a stone wall. Daniel bounced off and hit the ground hard, the breath driven from his lungs. The commander looked down at him with something that might have been respect. "You are brave," he said, "brave and stupid. I think I will not kill you quickly. I think I will make you watch while I take the princess. I think I will make you suffer for your defiance." He reached down and grabbed Daniel by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Daniel struggled, but it was useless. The commander's grip was like iron. "First," the commander said, "I'm going to break your arms, then your legs, then every bone in your body, one by one. And when you are nothing but a pile of broken meat, I am going to drag you into that room and show the princess what happens to humans who get in my way." He threw Daniel against the wall. Something cracked, and pain exploded through Daniel's body. Before he could recover, the commander was on him, raining down blows with his massive fists. Each blow was like being hit by a car. Daniel felt his ribs break, felt his organs rupture, felt his body being destroyed one piece at a time. He should have lost consciousness. He should have died. But somehow he stayed awake. Somehow he stayed alive. Because every time the commander turned toward the door, Daniel grabbed his leg or his arm or whatever he could reach. Every time the commander tried to move past him, Daniel put himself in the way. "Why will you not die?" the commander roared, genuine frustration in his voice. "Why do you keep getting up?" Daniel could not speak. His jaw was broken, along with most of the rest of his face. But he managed to pull himself to his feet one more time, managed to position himself between the commander and the door one more time. The commander stared at him. "This is impossible. Your body is destroyed. You should not be able to move." Daniel spat blood and raised his fists. The beating continued. The commander broke every bone in Daniel's body, ruptured every organ, caused damage that should have been fatal 10 times over. And still Daniel refused to fall. Still he kept getting up, kept placing himself between the commander and the door. The other had stopped fighting. They were watching with something like horror on their alien faces. They had never seen anything like this. No species they had ever encountered had shown this kind of resistance. "What are you?" the commander demanded. Daniel forced his broken mouth to form words. "Human," he managed. "I am human." The commander raised his fist for another blow, but before he could deliver it, the ship shook violently. Alarms began screaming again, but they were different this time. They were external alarms, proximity warnings. "Commander," one of the others said, "sensors are detecting multiple ships, warships." The Queen's fleet had arrived. The commander looked at Daniel, still standing despite everything, still blocking the door. Then he looked at his warriors, battered and bloody from the night's fighting. Then he made a decision. "We are leaving," he said, "now." "What about the princess?" "The mission has failed. We cannot fight the fleet." The commander turned back to Daniel. "You have one, human. I do not know how, but you have one." He reached out and pushed Daniel, just a gentle push, but it was enough. Daniel's broken body finally gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the door to his room opening, and silver hands reaching for him. Then there was nothing. Daniel woke up in a strange room filled with soft blue light. He was lying on something that felt like a cloud, and the air smelled sweet, like flowers he did not recognize. He tried to move and found that he could not. His body was held in place by some kind of invisible force. "Do not struggle," a voice said. "Your injuries were very severe. You are being held immobile while the healing process completes." Daniel turned his head, the only movement the force field allowed. Standing beside his bed was a woman in healer's robes, her silver skin glowing faintly in the blue light. "Where am I?" he asked. His voice sounded strange, rough, and weak. "You are on the royal flagship of the Empire. You have been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days? Daniel tried to process that information. "The princess, is she safe?" "Princess is safe. She has been waiting for you to wake up." Relief flooded through Daniel, so intense that it brought tears to his eyes. She was safe. After everything, she was safe. "There is someone else who wishes to see you," the healer said. "Someone very important." The door to the room opened, and a figure entered. That much was clear, but she was unlike any Daniel had ever seen. She was taller than, her silver skin darker and more radiant. She wore robes of deep purple that seemed to absorb the light around them, and a crown of living crystals sat upon her head. But it was her eyes that struck Daniel most. All four of them were fixed on him with an intensity that made him feel like an insect under a microscope. They were the same violet color as, but older, somehow colder, filled with centuries of experience and power. This was Queen of the Empire, mother, the ruler of one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And she was looking at Daniel like he was the most interesting thing she had seen in a very long time. "Leave us," she said to the healer. The healer bowed and hurried out of the room. The door sealed behind her, and Daniel was alone with the Queen. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The Queen circled his bed slowly, examining him from every angle. Daniel lay there, helpless in the grip of the force field, unable to do anything except meet her gaze. "So," she finally said, "you are the human who refused to die." "Your Majesty," Daniel said. He tried to bow his head, but the force field would not let him. "Do not bother with formalities. I did not come here for ceremony." She stopped at the foot of his bed, all four of her eyes fixed on his face. "I came here because I want to understand." "Understand what, Your Majesty?" The word was simple, but the way she said it was not. "I have reviewed the recordings from the human ship. I have seen what you did, every second of it." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He did not know what she had seen, what she thought of it, what she intended to do about it. "You absorbed 17 killing blows from a commander," the Queen continued. "Your internal organs were ruptured multiple times. Your skeleton was fractured in 43 places. By every medical standard we know, you should have died after the third strike." She paused. "But you did not die. You kept getting up. You kept placing yourself between the enemy and my daughter's door. Even when your body was destroyed beyond any possibility of survival, you kept fighting." She leaned closer, and Daniel could see his reflection in her dark violet eyes. "Why?" she asked. "What drove you to do such a thing?" Daniel thought about his answer carefully. He knew that what he said next could determine the rest of his life. He could give her a professional answer, talk about duty and responsibility and the honor of the Space Corps. That would be safe. That would be appropriate. But he was tired of being appropriate. He was tired of hiding what he felt. "I love her," he said simply. The Queen did not react. Her expression did not change. She just continued to study him with those ancient, penetrating eyes. "You love her," she repeated. "Yes. You are a corporal in the human military. She is a princess of the Empire. You have nothing to offer her. You have no wealth, no status, no power. And yet you love her." "Love does not care about wealth or status or power," Daniel said. "Love just is." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She laughed. It was not a cruel laugh or a mocking laugh. It was a genuine sound of amusement, musical and layered, filling the room with unexpected warmth. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met," she said, "or the most foolish, perhaps both." "I have been called worse things, Your Majesty." Another laugh. The Queen turned away from his bed and walked to the window. Beyond the transparent surface, Daniel could see stars stretching out into infinity, beautiful and cold. "I have ruled the Empire for 200 of your years," she said, her voice softer now. "In that time I have seen every form of political maneuvering, every false declaration of loyalty, every calculated gesture designed to curry favor." She turned back to him. "What you did on that ship was none of those things. It was pure. It was honest. It was—" she hesitated as if searching for the right word— "real." Daniel did not know what to say, so he said nothing. My advisors tell me that you should be returned to the human delegation, the Queen continued. They say that your presence here is inappropriate, that you have overstepped your bounds, that your feelings for my daughter are an insult to the crown. Her 4 eyes narrowed. Do you know what I told them? No, Your Majesty. I told them to be silent. I told them that I would decide what is appropriate and what is not. I told them that any man who is willing to absorb 17 killing blows for my daughter deserves something more than bureaucratic dismissal. She moved back to his bed, standing close enough that Daniel could smell her perfume. It was different from his, deeper and more complex, like flowers that only bloomed in darkness. You will not be returning to the human delegation, she said. You will be staying here in my palace under my protection. Daniel felt his heart skip. Your Majesty, I do not understand. You have demonstrated qualities that they have not seen in a very long time, Corporal Hayes. Loyalty that goes beyond reason, courage that defies the body's limitations, love that asks nothing in return. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. These are qualities that would benefit my empire, that would benefit me. She reached out and touched his face, her silver fingers cool against his skin. It was the same gesture that had made before she kissed him, and Daniel felt his confusion grow. Rest now, the Queen said. Heal. When you are recovered, we will speak again. We will speak about many things. She turned and walked toward the door, but before she left, she paused and looked back at him. I have not felt curious about anything in 70 years, she said. You have made me curious, Daniel Hayes. I find that I want to know more about humans, about what drives you, about what makes you willing to sacrifice everything for something as intangible as love. The door opened and she stepped through. I think, she said, her voice carrying one final time before the door sealed behind her, that we are going to know each other very well. And then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts and the unsettling feeling that his life had just taken a turn he could never have predicted. He had nearly died protecting a princess he loved, and now, somehow, he had attracted the attention of her mother, an alien queen who had been cold and distant for decades. He did not know what any of it meant. He did not know what was going to happen next. All he knew was that he was very far from Colorado, very far from everything he had ever known. And the universe, it seemed, was just getting started with him.